Hey folks, Joe with JACBC Baseball Collector here, coming back at you with something a little bit different tonight. Before the 2023 baseball, MLB regular season, I put out some videos that were basically like divisional previews of each of the divisions in the American and National League, the East, the Central, the West, as kind of more just general baseball content, just talking baseball, talking shop, using cards as kind of a catalyst for some of the conversations, showing off some things in my collection along the way. And what I decided I want to do on the channel, post kind of my hiatus from YouTube, is to try to do some more content like that. So something I'm going to try to do this year, I guess 6 times, as there's 6 months in the baseball season, is do a kind of monthly recap or roundup. So for a video like this, this is obviously my first time doing it. I'm gonna have to try to put some of my editing skills at play. But what I'd like to do is, do a little bit of an around the league, kind of where things stand, some things that have stood out to me, and then highlight a number of players. I think I have 10 or so guys here that I'd like to highlight, talk about their play, where they're going, where they're at, and then tie it back to kind of their card prices and where they're moving at in the market and things along those lines that I found particularly interesting when doing a little bit of the research. So that's the crux of what I'm getting at with these videos. And definitely let me know down in the comments if you guys like this kind of content. Any suggestions, feedback, always open to that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously, other than the fact that it's probably going to be way too long, as I like to talk. All right, let's dive right in then. So, first off, I'm going to do like a little bit of around the league, a little league roundup, looking at both the American League and the National League, some of the league leaders, things along those lines. So, in the American League, you have your three divisional leaders are going to be the Tampa Bay Rays, who are 23-6. They're off to an absolutely historic start. They started on that, it was a 12, 13, 14 game winning streak. I don't even remember exactly what it was. And they're just hitting the ball over the park. They're pitching well. And they look like they're really poised for a big season. You have the Minnesota Twins in the Central, leading the Central at 17-12, and the Texas Rangers leading the West at 17-11, with a little bit of an edge over the Houston Astros, who've come on strong recently. Speaking of the Astros, they started off pretty poorly, 8-10, but then they did win 7 of their last 10 to end the month. So they're definitely coming on strong. I think pretty much everyone expects them to be pretty strong throughout this season. Then you also have Baltimore off to a surprising start. I didn't jot down their record, but I think there's something like 18-9, or there's something particularly strong to start the season. I don't think a lot of people expected that. We do know that they have the good young offense, Adley, Gunnar. Jorge Mateo's been out of his mind, but even the pitching's holding up. So I do expect that pitching to regress. I just can't see it maintaining over the long haul unless they go out and make a move and get a big arm. But they've definitely been really a nice surprise and fun to watch. On the kind of negative side of the American League, you have the White Sox, who already look absolutely dead. I mean, they're 8-21. They had a dreadful, dreadful April. They look dead in the water. They were a really popular pick to win the Central amongst, myself included. I knew a lot of people were picking them to even go to the World Series, potentially win the World Series. This is a team that it has talent top to bottom on that roster, and they just cannot get out of their own way. They look absolutely dead. They're getting killed by teams. They're losing in weird, ridiculous fashions. I mean, they maybe can turn it around, but they just look completely dead on arrival. And then, of course, you have Oakland, who, you heard the news that they're going to officially be moving to Las Vegas, probably within the next couple of years. So finally leaving Oakland, but they're on track to be an all-time bad team. I mean, they might win. I think they're on pace for 33 wins right now. So, maybe they accelerate somehow a little bit if they catch a little hot streak somewhere, but get up to 40. But the pace that they're on right now is absolutely historically bad. So you have the Rays on a historic pace in one direction, and the Athletics in the American League on a historic pace in the other direction. All right, shifting to the National League, you've got the Braves leading the East at 18-9. The Pirates, the big surprise team, at 20-9, leading the National League in winning percentage. So you see, I have here my Rays hat and my Pirates hat as the two leading teams in each league. Not teams that I think anyone thought probably coming out of April would be your leading teams, but as we know, a lot can change in the remaining 5 months of a baseball season. But the Pirates have been really fun to watch, just electrifying young talent. They keep finding ways to win. They're blowing teams out in a lot of regards. And I mean, did anyone see this coming? I don't think that we really did. And then out west, you have the Arizona Diamondbacks at 16-13, with the Dodgers and the Padres nipping at their heels. The Padres are an interesting one. They've been like really underwhelming as a team. I think they had the worst OPS in the entire National League before this Mexico City series, where the offense just in that Mexico City series was just off the charts. I think the one game they scored like 30 runs combined or something ridiculous like that, and it really juiced up their offensive stats just from those two games. But before that, they were the absolute worst offense in the majors, I believe, or just about, maybe 29th, but they were really horrendous. But even despite all that, despite not hitting at all, and we'll get to that in a little bit with Soto and some others, they remain in the hunt. So, the West might not be as super strong this year. I don't think the Dodgers are as strong as they've been. The question becomes, can the D-backs maintain it? But Padres remain in the hunt, even despite a really crappy April. The other team that's really struggled is the St. Louis Cardinals. They're in last place. They're at 10-19. A lot of people picked them to win the Central. They were not my favorite. I did not like their pitching staff, and that's kind of coming to fruition here in April. Their pitching has been horrible, and you also have a guy like Nolan Arenado, who's supposed to be the leader of that team. He led the team actually in WAR last year, even despite how great of a season Goldschmidt had, who's having him not a good year. I mean, he's still playing good defense, but he's not hitting at all. I think he has a 67 OPS plus or something along those lines. He's having a really, really tough year. All right, let's shift over to some league leaders. So real quick, I'll run through this. You'll see the graphic I'm throwing up on the screen right now. You have Max Muncy leading the league in homers. And then you have Alonso, Devers, and Wisdom with 10 apiece. So those are all your double-digit home run leaders through the month of April. You have Luis Arias batting .438. I mean, he's just hitting the ball all over the field for the Marlins. That's turning out to be a really nice trade for them. And then stolen bases are way up across the league. I don't have the numbers jotted down here, but they're just attempts in general are way up across the league, and success rate is way up across the league. And that's definitely attributed to the new rules. I think a lot of people saw that coming. On the pitching side of things, you have Sonny Gray leading the league with an .077 ERA. That hurts my heart a little bit as a Yankee fan, just given his tenure here was so tough, and now he's out there dominating. And then you have Spencer Strider, the wild thing, with a 14.7 strikeout per 9 ratio. Just an unbelievable strikeout pitcher this guy is turning out to be. He could be really special if he can make sure he stays healthy for the entire season. And then I do just have a note here that you have to call it out. I don't have anything super specific about him, but Shohei Ohtani just continues to do Shohei Ohtani things. He's dominating on both sides of the ball. That's nothing special at this point. I mean, it is special. It's really truly remarkable what we're witnessing. But it's basically to be expected at this point. Like we're very spoiled getting to watch this guy day in and day out through his prime. All right, now I'm going to go through, highlight a number of the guys around the league that really jumped out to me in the month of April, whether it be for positive reasons or negative reasons. So first, we're going to start with this guy right here, Matt Chapman. He was the WAR leader, wins above replacement leader in the major leagues in the month of April. He had 2.0 WAR, wins above replacement, and that's even despite playing uncharacteristically subpar defense, at least as far as the analytics were concerned. Chapman's usually a really high defensive guy. The analytics like him a lot, and his defensive run saved and all those different stats. And he was actually slightly below the average for this, but his offensive stats were just so off the charts that it still led him to be a 2.0 WAR guy, which just if you extrapolate that out over a full season, a 6-month season, that would be a 12 WAR season. I mean, that would be one of the all-time great seasons. I think Judge last year in his 62 homer season was at like 10.5 or something like that. So obviously he's not going to keep that kind of pace for the entire season, but it just goes to show you what a really unbelievable April he had. Diving into the actual numbers here, he had a 384 average, a 465 on base percentage, a 687 slugging, and an 1152 OPS, which is just truly phenomenal for an entire month. Obviously, like I said, it's going to be tough to maintain such a thing for the full season. And I actually snagged this guy up, not really late, but, I think got tremendous value for him. Obviously, he's the number 1 overall player in a number of my fantasy drafts. So he's carrying some of my teams. So I really like that. If you look at his Baseball Savant page, which I'm popping up on the screen right now too, is, it's just unreal to look at it. I mean, look at all the red on the page. He's in literally the 99th or 100th percentile in average exit velocity, hard hit percentage, expected weighted on base average, which is basically kind of like one of your equivalents of like an OPS, expected batting average, expected slugging, barrel rate. I mean, this guy is just all over the baseball. He's just barreling up baseballs and hitting the ball extremely hard, and it's translating into really big numbers. So from a card perspective, from a hobby perspective, Obviously, he's not a huge hobby darling, right? I don't think anyone's there are probably a few people out there. He played for the Athletics, so that hurt him a little bit. He plays up in Toronto, that hurts him a little bit, unfortunately. He's not a guy like Vladdy up there who's kind of, young and exciting and, calls for, the big bucks kind of thing. But his stuff has definitely gone up with this hot streak. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you'll see his first Bowman Chrome, and which I had here on the screen before I put the graphic up, and his first Bowman Chrome Auto. They've both gone up percentage wise pretty nicely over the past 30 days, and I don't think that there's any reason that they would have done that without this monster hot streak. So the question becomes: is this a good time to sell? Do we think Matt Chapman's going to continue doing this for the rest of the year? Probably not. So, obviously this is, disclaimer, not investment advice, but, and I'm hardly, a sports card investor, but, this may be a guy who you kind of strike at the top here, because he's probably going to be one that's due to come back down, especially as some of the other guys we talk about on this list, get themselves back on track. All right, next up, we got what I'm referring to as our surging star. Our surging star is none other than Ronald Acuna Jr. So I got his nice 2018 update rookie card here. Unfortunately, do not have Ronald Acuna bat down. I would love to add that to my collection someday. But this guy is absolutely on fire to start the year. He is reminding everyone of who he is and the guy that we all remember that took baseball and the hobby by storm just a few years ago. I mean, he came into the league in 18, had a monster year. He had a great 19, and then he kind of got derailed by some injuries, and last year he kind of regressed down a little bit. I think he only had like a 112 OPS plus. He didn't have that great season that demanded the high prices and high praise that he was, getting at the time. But this year he came out of the gate like gangbusters. He's hitting 352. He leads the league in total bases with 59. So that's, you're adding up all your singles and doubles. Doubles count for 2, triples count for 3, home runs count for 4. He's got 59 on total. So he's getting a ton of extra base hits. He leads the league in runs with 23, which obviously is attributable to the fact that he's part of that really strong Braves offense. And he leads the league in steals with 13. So, he's only got the 4 homers, but he's got 13 steals. If he could have himself, a hot streak with hitting the ball out of the park, there's no reason that 30-30 is not in his sights this year for sure. So, he's got an OPS approaching 1,000. Obviously, they're not quite Matt Chapman type numbers. He's slightly behind him in WAR because he is also playing really nice defense. But he is just, like I said, come out of the gate like absolute gangbusters. And, his love in this hobby is beginning to be rekindled, I think, amongst a lot of people, as they were, a lot of folks were down on him, I think, the last year or so. But if you do look at that infamous bat down SP from 2019, so from Series 2, that short print bat down card, if you look at it in a PSA 10, it's up nearly 40% since opening day. So you can see that here with the chart. I think that there's probably multiple factors to that. Obviously, scarcity, other things. There probably isn't a ton of volume driving these numbers at the moment. But I mean, I think that the great start, bouncing back from where he was at, he probably was at, kind of relative lows, earlier in the year and over the winter, compared to the underwhelming, compared to 2022, especially. I think that's playing a huge part. I mean, just my opinion. I'm hardly kind of the analysis guy again when it comes to analyzing the card prices and the waves of the market. But I think that it's definitely multifaceted, but his huge start is hugely to pay for some of this stuff. So, sky's the limit with this guy. I think that he potentially has an MVP award incoming this season with how he's played thus far, especially if he could keep it up. All right, from surging star, we're going to go to struggling star. And that is Mr. Acuna's compadre from that 2018 rookie class, obviously putting Shohei aside, who's in a class of his own at this point. And it's Juan Soto. So Soto was a very popular preseason MVP pick, from myself included. I saw him picked at a number of places. I think people thought he was poised for a monster year in the middle of that really strong, what we thought was going to be really strong Padres offense. And there's no way to sugarcoat it. He's been an absolute train wreck at the plate thus far in April, or thus far this season. He just doesn't look right. If you really dig into his numbers, I mean, you'll see he's hitting under 200. He did hit under 200 for most of the month. I think it just ticked up after that, like I said, Mexico series that they played where the offense was just, it was like basically playing in cores on steroids. I think his OPS touched as low as like 684, I believe was the number at some point late in the month, which is just horrible. I mean, that's a well below average player. He's still leading the league in walks, so he's creating value with on base percentage, but he's not driving the ball in the same way. So he's not creating extra base hits. He's not hitting the ball out of the ballpark like he usually does. He's not even collecting base hits. He doesn't swing at a lot of pitches, so he's got to find his pitch that he likes and drive it, and he's not doing it because he is so selective, and that's why he does get so many walks. He has the best eye on the planet. I think that, what we are seeing on his batted balls, which I shouldn't say he's not driving the ball because he is hitting the ball hard comparatively. His exit velocities and all that stuff is still good, but he's hitting way too many ground balls. I think he's hitting the most ground balls he's ever hit in his career. He's really pull happy, which is not something he's been in his career. He uses the entire field middle away really well, including with power. And he needs to create more line drives. I think he's hitting something like 5% of line drives or 10% line drives. It's some really ridiculously low number. I mean, he needs to double or even triple that to start seeing the results of the Juan Soto that we know and love. He's a hard worker. I've seen a number of videos with him working, doing all these drills, pregame, postgame. Like, this guy is working his butt off to get back to where he knows he could be. And obviously he knows he's going to be in a walk year soon, and he wants to, get that big payday. He turned down that, $440 million. I still think he gets a ridiculous amount of money regardless. He's so young. He's so talented. Somebody's going to give it to him and take a chance. But he's a guy who wants to, be good, have that legacy. And I think he's going to get himself back there at some point. So, looking to his cards, like looking to where he sits in the hobby, I think he's been one of the highest priced guys in the hobby over the past few years. I mean, you have Shohei, you have Trout, and you have Soto. I mean, I do recall reading something or seeing something somewhere that it was kind of those three, and Soto was like way up there, even despite not necessarily having quite the career that those other two have had thus far. But he's definitely taking a hit right now. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The same way that Acuna is kind of seeing a surge, Soto is taking a bit of a hit. So, I plucked out his Chrome Update rookie card to take a look at, as far as price trend wise, and you'll see it's off, 10-15% in April. Is that dramatic? Is that partially because of preseason hype, the spring training kind of pumping up prices and then things coming back down to normal? Yeah, probably. That's probably a big part of it, but it certainly doesn't help that he's playing poorly. If he had Acuna like April, do I think that his prices would have continued to rise from where they were in the spring? Yeah, I think that they probably would have. But I mean, I think long term people are still believers, but at some point you're going to have to start producing the results, or people are going to start to sour, and things could unravel relatively quickly for him. One guy to also call out is Jose Abreu, just as far as struggling stars go. Abreu's in the latter part of his career. I think he's 36 or 37. He's had a tremendous career for the White Sox, now playing for the Astros. He is the worst player in the league right now. He has a negative .07 WAR on the season, which is just a huge number for a single season. He hasn't hit a single homer. He's not creating any batting average. He's not hitting the ball well at all. He doesn't really play good defense anymore at first base. I mean, he has been, I know a lot of my Yankee compadres were like, I can't believe the Astros got Abreu. They're going to be so much better. Gurriel stunk last year. They upgraded so greatly. Abreu already was on a downtrend as far as his power went. I think I might have talked about it in one of my preview videos when talking about the Astros. His power was on a downtrend. This is just the bottom totally dropping out. So we'll see if he's a guy who can figure it out, but he has really struggled this year. So he's another guy to keep an eye on. Not a huge hobby darling either. Probably has a little bit of a following, but so we won't get into that too much, but he's looked really bad. All right, next up, we got a breakout youngster in the month of April. And, all I could say is finally, it is my guy, Jared Kelenic. I've believed in this guy. I thought he was rushed up to the majors too soon those past couple of years. They tried to get him into the mix too early. He just simply wasn't ready. And he had a really rough start to his career as a result. I mean, 2021 and 2022, he pretty much had 500 at bats and he hit 168 with a 589 OPS. People were done with this guy. The hobby was done with him. Prices, I mean, on this card, I pretty much picked this card up at the peak. I don't think it's even fully recovered yet, even despite as well as he's played this April. So, that sucks for me, but it's just one of those things. I do collect the Chrome Autos every year, the rookie Chrome Auto set. So it was just one I happened to pick up at the wrong time. I mean, that kind of stuff happens. If I would have waited 6 months to a year, I probably would have got it for 3 times less than I did, for a third than I did. But, he kept working hard. He changed some things in his approach, his swing, his stance, all those things. And, you can kind of see it in spring training. He was hitting the ball hard. His approach clearly looked different, and he's reaping the benefits of that. He's had a monster start to the year. He's got a 174 OPS plus, which is good for third in the American League. He's hit 7 homers. He's hitting the ball incredibly hard. His average exit velocities and all that are extremely high. He did have a mini slump late in the month when the Mariners bumped him up into the 2-3 spot in the lineup. He had pretty much consistently been batting in the lower part of the lineup, mostly 6th. So, there may be kind of a pressure element there now, being expected to be, a middle of the lineup hitter. I think a guy like this, who you've already kind of messed with enough, leave him in that 6th spot, let him keep hitting. I know J-Rod just went out with an injury. I don't know if he's going to be out a long time, but, maybe they need to kind of change the dynamic of the lineup a little bit, but leave him in that 6th spot and let him keep raking. Let him keep getting that confidence, in my opinion. Putting up those big numbers is only going to help him and help this team. As far as card prices go, like I said, his prices collapsed a year or so ago. I mean, I think this was a $300 some odd card at some point. I think I saw it as low as 80, 75 bucks, maybe lower than that at one point, because I would like to go back and check and be like, how much did I badly get fleeced on this? But, I think that was kind of the high point and the low point, but they're definitely on the comeback now. And you could see that right here with some of the stuff that I'm going to put up on the screen. His strong play and finally realizing his potential. He was a guy the hobby loved in 2021. Everyone was chasing his cards. He was probably the #1 chase guy in 2021 products. Major league products, obviously, not Bowman. But, if you go back and you look at his first Bowman Chrome Autos, it seems like there was a fair more amount of volume in a BGS 9.5. So I chose that over the PSA 10 for the purposes of looking at this analysis, and it's doubled since opening day. So, I mean, and, Raw is also up nicely. PSA, like I said, hasn't had as much volume, but, his other key rookie cards, autos, all that is up in kind of the 10 to 25% range as well, from what I've seen. So, his cards are definitely really surging. It's great to see. I'm glad to see that this guy got himself back on track. And I just hope that he can continue maintaining it, not only selfishly, because, I have a little bit of his stuff. Mainly this card is the one that I sunk the most into. But, I think he's a really, really good, talented player. And when we have these good young superstars do well, it's good for baseball. It's good for the hobby. And it's just so much fun to watch. So, like I said, that BGS 9.5 really went up. I don't know if it has much further to go, but if he could put together a full season like this, we could really see things begin to take off again for this guy like they had, a couple years ago. All right, on the other side of this coin, another really highly regarded prospect who is entering bust territory. It is a guy I really like. I picked up a lot of his stuff in the offseason. Nothing too expensive, but I picked up a lot of his stuff. I loved his pedigree. I like his bat a lot. He hits the ball incredibly hard. It's Spencer Torkelson. I mean, he's off to just another really slow start. But, I mean, granted, the entire Tigers they're pretty bad. Riley Green's had a rough time. Like, the whole team just kind of stinks. But, I think that people are going to start saying, is it time to start having the bust conversation for a former #1 overall pick who's played this poorly? So he's been among the worst hitters in the league, both last year and this year when he's played. I mean, he has around a 200 average, no power. He's had pretty much a 600 OPS since he came into the league. So, we talked about how bad a 680 is, which, when we were talking about Juan Soto, 600 is just like bottom of the barrel, barely a major. There was not even a major leaguer. On a lot of teams, that wouldn't even cut it as a major leaguer, especially as a first baseman. I mean, this guy plays a corner position. You got to produce more than that. So me personally, because I do like him, it's probably a personal bias thing, I'm not ready to write him off yet. because he does hit the ball so freaking hard. He has really nice exit velocities. He's actually striking out less than the major league average, so it's not like he's being overmatched and pitches are being blown by him and he's striking out like crazy. Um, he's hitting a lot of line drives hard. I mean, maybe there's a luck aspect here. Maybe it's a batting average on balls in play luck thing. I don't know what to make of it, but he's just not seeing the results. So, there are things that are saying he should see better results, but they're not formulating. And obviously this hobby is very much, what have you done for me lately? So it's getting late early, as they say, for a guy like Spencer Torkelson. So, the hobby is soured on him quite a bit. I think they already did a bit last year. He should have been a headliner in that rookie class along with Julio and Witt and others, and he kind of took a back seat and dropped down into the second tier because of some of his performance, really strictly relying on his pedigree as a former first overall pick. When you look at his first Bowman Chrome refractor, that's the one I picked out to take a look at here. If you look at his first Bowman Chrome refractor, just this month alone, it's way down. I mean, a number of his cards are down. I mean, he continues to go down because he continues to perform poorly. But this Chrome refractor is definitely considerably down. So does that mean it's a good buying opportunity? Most of his stuff is pretty cheap. It's a few bucks here and there. I mean, you're not spending hundreds of dollars on this guy or anything like that. Even in some of the graded stuff, it's just not going for all that much these days. So if you have any semblance of belief in Torkelson, it may be a good buying opportunity if you think he has any chance to turn it around. If you think those hard hit rates and those line drives and the lack of striking out will eventually start translating into some bigger numbers and he drives the ball out of the ballpark, then this might be your opportunity to strike. Bad April be damned. All right, next up is going to be the lone pitcher, or I shouldn't say the lone pitcher. The lone pitcher we talk about in a positive light on this video, and that is Mr. Unhittable himself. It is Zach Gallen. So we're going to look at his Chrome autograph here, both in person and in the graphic, where that is going to be a card we highlight here. He is tied for the league lead in WAR among pitchers with my guy Garrett Cole at 1.7 WAR on Fangraphs. So he's having another tremendous season. I mean, this guy, year in and year out, he just gets it done. I mean, he doesn't knock your socks off with stuff. He doesn't seem like he's a Cole type ace or a Verlander or, in his prime, or, I don't know who else, comes to mind. Like he isn't one of those types of guys, but he just gets it done. He has a strikeout rate of 12.2 strikeouts per 9 innings, best of his career. A walk rate of 1.2 walks per 9 innings, best of his career, by far, by big margins, by multiple strikeouts and walks per 9 for him. So he's absolutely hitting his stride right into the prime of his career. I mean, he came in the league in 1920, and he just kind of keeps getting better and better. I think he had one blip of a season, maybe 21 was kind of off, but last year was great. 20 was great, and then this year, this year, again, he's in the midst of a 28 inning scoreless streak right now as we speak. Last year, he had a 44 inning long scoreless streak 44 inning scoreless streak. So this guy just puts together start after start after start of just shutting teams down. And he's, basically a sub, I think, one or two more good starts. He's going to be a sub 3 pitcher for his career thus far. 3 ERA pitcher. It's just really tremendous. So, have to assume that he's a huge reason, a huge contributor to the Diamondbacks' early success this year. Like I said, they're leading the West by a couple games over both the Dodgers and the Padres, and he's the catalyst for that. I mean, this guy's holding it all together for them, no doubt about it. So let's take a look at the trends on this Chrome rookie auto that I've been showing off. I'll put up the graphic on the screen for this version, the version of this card in a PSA 10. So, from what I could tell, this is pretty much this guy's best card. I don't think he has like a ton of others, obviously the parallels, but for argument's sake and for volume's sake, because it kind of makes things cleaner with the numbers. His base auto is what we're looking at here. It's jumped 60% just this month. So from basically a $75 card around opening day to a $120-ish card now at the end of the month of April, or as we begin in May. I actually bought this card for about $20 raw a couple years ago. I have to take a close look at it. It looks pretty good to me at first glance, but In a PSA 10, that's a pretty nice multiplier for a gem rate. I mean, if you get that at, a $1.20 for a card you bought for $20, you pay a few bucks to have it graded. I mean, you're still talking about a, 3-4x multiplier. Pretty nice. All right, moving on. We're going to take a look at a probably the most notable injury of the month, and that's going to be Mr. O'Neal Cruz. So, I'm not going to put a clip up or anything of the injury. It was pretty nasty looking. It was pretty gruesome. He went in hard at home plate. The catcher was blocking, and Cruz just basically shattered his ankle, I believe it was. That was all the way back on April 9th, April 9th, and he's probably going to be out for 4 months. So call that, May 9th. June 9th, July 9th, August 9th. So, chance that he gets back this year, probably a safer bet that he's maybe back in the month of September. I've dealt with an ankle injury in my past. Obviously, I'm not a 6'7", freak of nature professional athlete, but, ankle injuries are definitely no fun. They take some time to get back from. You don't want to rush them, or else you'll definitely be in trouble. But he was on his way to what looked like a nice sophomore season. I mean, obviously it was a small sample size. He wasn't like blowing the doors off, but he looked like he was, poised to put together a really nice second season in the major leagues. And obviously he had the unfortunate injury. So it definitely sucks to see that. I mean, it's you don't want to see that happen to anyone, but especially these young kind of budding stars, getting injured at all, but especially going out for long periods of time. With how exciting this Pirates team has been this year, just McCutchen coming back into the fold and all these just young studs doing their thing. I mean, I don't even know if you could call some of them studs, but these just youngsters doing their thing, winning games. They're up to 20 wins already. It would have been just so sick to see and have O'Neal Cruz in that mix, contributing to that team with his laser rocket arm, his exit velocity, just ripping the ball over the ballpark. But this is obviously the hand that he and the Pirates have been dealt. He's trying to get himself healthy and get back on track and get in the mix. He might be in. So let's take a look at some of his Chrome rookie stuff for a minute. So all different flavors from last year. So I mean, you have his base Chrome, his refractor Chrome, his cosmic Chrome, all this different Chrome rookie stuff is way down to start the season. And I'm not talking about just like a regular pullback from kind of spring training hype numbers. I'm talking to the tune of 50 to 80%. For some of them, and I didn't break it all down here. I showed the one chart to kind of just make the point here. So I think some of that's the normal pullback, but I think that the injury really pushed people away from him. They're moving money around into other things, into other players, because he's just going to be someone that people can forget about or have forgotten about and aren't dealing with for the moment. They're going to keep forgetting about him for the next few months. He's going to get even less and less relevant as things go on. But then once he gets back into the fold, I mean, if he can come back at some point in August or some point in September, especially if this Pirates team is finding a way to contend, I mean, it's going to be hard for them to continue along at this pace. They're just like not that good of a team. They're not that talented. But if they somehow do stay in the mix and they stay contending and this guy comes back and he starts playing well, you could see O'Neal Cruz's stuff go absolutely gangbusters if he starts, jacking homers all over the place for a contending Pittsburgh Pirates team, a team with so much history, and just so many young, exciting players. I mean, I think that could be something that's definitely in the cards. We'll have to see how that goes. All right, a few more things to quickly review here. Let's take a look at the New York Mets. The New York Mets and their 78 years old worth of aces. So you got Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer, a 40-year-old and a 38-year-old, making up 78 years worth of aces on this team. I mean, so much of the Mets' success is tied up in these two old men. And they're phenomenal. I mean, they're future Hall of Famers. They're ballers. They're still good, but it's so hard to rely on old arms with a lot of innings on them, paying them a combined $87 million a year, both this year and next year. It was a tough April for them. It's really that simple. I mean, if you look at Verlander, he hasn't even pitched yet. And who knows when he's even getting back. Maybe there's some report on when he's getting back, but I haven't seen it personally. So he's trying to claw his way back. And then Scherzer really hasn't been his usual self. He hasn't been his usual Max Scherzer self. He has a 5.71 FIP, a fielding independent pitching, which is not at all in line with his ERA, which is considerably lower, but FIP tends to be a little bit more indicative of how a guy's actually throwing. His strikeout rate is way down. He's usually well over 10 per 9. He's at like 7.9 or 8 so far this year. And he's not really making it deep into games. He's only pitched the 4 games because he did get suspended for the sticky stuff, which was, kind of controversial. But, it's something that happened, and he's going to miss a couple of starts because of that. But even the games that he did pitch on opening day, I think he made it through 6 innings, and then since then he didn't make it through the sixth in a single start. So, these guys are definitely both a reason that the Mets are. I mean, they started fine. I think they're 15-13, something along those lines. They started fine, but they're going to need these two guys to be JV and Two Eyes Max Scherzer if they want a chance to win this division, especially with how strong the Braves look. So, they'll be surefire Hall of Famers. So, with that being said, I think if you start looking at their cards, especially some of their rookies and stuff, they should have some staying power just because everyone knows that they're good long-term plays. But there's definitely a pullback happening here, and it's that kind of nobody in this hobby, in this game, is safe of the "what have you done for me lately" kind of thing. So if you look at Scherzer, his 2005 tops PSA 10, it's down 8 to 10%. Some of that's probably spring training pullback in the first month of the year. Some of that's probably that the guy hasn't pitched yet this season. So people are a little bit off him and going elsewhere, going for some young stars who are having great years. Scherzer, same kind of thing. 2008 update, PSA 10, down around 15%. You do see there's that kind of one big weird spike in there. I'm not obviously quite sure what that is. But he's down from where the year started about 15% as well. So I think these are normal pullbacks. This kind of stuff probably happens throughout a baseball season. But even when you're Hall of Famers, if you don't perform well, it's hard to even maintain the status quo. If you don't perform well, if you don't stay on the field, people forget about you and you start, taking a back seat and people allocate their funds elsewhere. All right, next up, we're going to do another quick duo here. It is a couple of what I'm calling spring training stars. And that's going to be Mr. Jordan Walker and Anthony Volpe. So these were two guys, top 5 prospects, lit the world on fire with huge spring trainings, and then made their team's opening day rosters for both the Cardinals and the Yankees, respectively. People were really excited for them. Their stuff went absolutely crazy before the season. I held on to all my Volpe stuff, obviously, as a Yankee collector. I unloaded a bunch of Walker stuff and did well on his, the few nice Walker things that I did have. Let's look at how they actually started the season, because spring training is not really indicative of anything. Walker started his career pretty well. He was on a 12-game hitting streak, but then he fell into a 5-for-26 slump, and the Cardinals actually ended up optioning him to AAA. That was mainly around defensive concerns. They have a really crowded outfield. They got Carlson and Tyler O'Neill and Juan Yepez. I don't know if he's healthy right now or down on the farm. They got Nolan Gorman. They have Lars Nootbaar. They just have so many outfielders who are all, quality players, or good enough players that it allows them the fact to send a guy like Walker down at just 21 years old to get a little bit more seasoning, become a little bit more disciplined to the plate, and shore up his defense in the outfield, because it's not his normal natural position. He actually came up as a third baseman, obviously blocked by Nolan Arenado at the moment, but he'll be back, no doubt about it. This guy's going to be back. He has it. You can see it. He has it, but he'll be, he's not there right now. Volpe, he also started off very slow. So first 2 weeks, really struggled at the plate, looked overmatched, was it the bright lights in New York, whatever it was. But they actually had to slide him up into the leadoff spot just to kind of get a little bit of spark going with this Yankees lineup, some injuries, other things. And he's kind of become a bit of an on-base machine since moving into that leadoff spot. And the Yankees really need him to keep getting better with just the way that that offense has been hitting. So, he's a guy who's kind of taken the opposite track of Walker. He started slow and is now heating up, whereas Walker started hot with the hitting streak, slowed down, and then ended up getting optioned. So Volpe's playing well. He's hitting the ball, and he's playing good defense. No real complaints from me. I think he's going to continue getting better and developing at the major league level. So if we look at these two guys, they obviously had huge hot prospect hype, quote unquote hot prospect hype in the spring, which has now cooled down considerably. 2 years ago, I bought myself 2 Jordan Walker first Bowmans, a chrome base and a refractor, a lot, for $25 between the two of them. Now you can't get just a refractor raw, or even I think a base raw for $25, even after their prices have cooled. Or no, I should take that back. He was peaking around $35 for just the base, I think sometime last month, something along those lines, was actually what I remember seeing. So, these guys are definitely off quite a bit. part of that again is the just massive, massive hype. This hobby loves prospects. It loves the young guys. It loves the kind of these short term hot, kind of pump them up kind of things. So that's where those guys were at in spring training. It's no surprise that they're down quite a bit, but I think the two of them are probably going to have long-term staying power in the league and in the hobby. Even despite being off, kind of the figures that we're seeing here in the graphic I have up on the screen for their first Bowman cards. All right, let's close it out with one last guy, the rookie of the month, and that's James Outman. I mean, where did this guy even come from? I know he had a really nice cup of coffee with the Dodgers last year, but he was their 10th ranked prospect coming into the year, if I'm not mistaken. And he's just taking the league by absolute storm. You can't get him out. I mean, I think he's faltered a tiny bit at the end of the month, but for most of the month, this guy was just lights out at the plate. You could not get him out. He's been playing all over the Dodgers outfield to a 991 OPS. Most of the month he spent over a 1,000 OPS. He's tied with Acuna for the league lead in total bases with 59. So that should tell you something with how great Acuna's played. This guy right here, James Outman, is right up there with him in total bases. Now, the one thing to note, I think, is that this could be fueled by the fact that he had a 396 batting average on balls in play. So, I talked about it in some of my preview videos. When you look at BABIP, you start talking about around 300 is league average. In order to start really approaching something like 400, even if you're hitting the ball, the cover off the ball, line drives everywhere, super high exit velocities, 400 is still ridiculous. So that kind of indicates a little bit of a luck factor and other things. So it may be hard to expect his long-term prospects to stay kind of on this track or even be great. I mean, he may see a considerable pullback once that BABIP starts to normalize quite a bit. So the card I have here right now up on the screen is to me his first real base rookie card, and that's 2023 Bowman. I think he had a card in Big League, but I don't know. Is anyone counting that? I'm sure some people technically will. But if you look at his cards, he really has not had very many thus far, even having been a 25-year-old kind of prospect up to this point. I think he's 26 technically this year. He hasn't really had a lot of cards in circulation. He had a first paper auto in Bowman in 2019. I don't believe he had even a base card or a chrome. He had a 2023 Top Series 1 Silver Pack card, so he wasn't in Series 1, just the base set. And that was, I think, really it until this Bowman card and I guess the Big League card came out. So if you look at that Bowman paper auto, just raw, I mean, a lot of people don't have these graded. Some of them are graded, but raw is kind of where you're going to see your volume. That card went from a $60 card over the winter, right around New Year's and Christmas, to a $200 card around opening day. So I think some people saw the writing on the wall that this guy was playing well in spring, was going to, get a bunch of playing time with the Dodgers, who are a big market team, to now a $350 card here at the end of the month of April, beginning of May. And it touched as high as $410 during the month. So, maybe about a week or so ago, the card touched as high as $410. A paper autograph. I believe they put stickers on those. Sticker auto. So a paper auto from Bowman touched as high as $410 raw for James Outman, a 26-year-old rookie. So, some of that is obviously a scarcity thing. It's the only card he really had out there. It was that and the Silver Pack card. So I think, just the pure scarcity, the fact that it was an autograph, it was the only one this guy had out there. It was really driving prices high on a guy playing on a big market, on a really good team, playing so well and just off the walls, and the fact that he was a rookie. I mean, it was a perfect storm for him to see a 6-7 times multiple from where his card was, at the new year. But I think that regression with the batting average on balls in play and all that is definitely more likely than not. And we're going to see that start to hit hard. And I think that card is going to pull back significantly, especially as he gets more and more cards into circulation as all of the different sets this year release. You're going to start getting Topps Chrome autographs, all the different sets that he could potentially be in when his real base rookie card comes out in Series 2, all that stuff. You'll start to see pullbacks of those cards that are being really driven by the scarcity thing. So, I don't know if we'll ever see those touching, $400 some odd ever again. All right, that's going to wrap up my April recap. Not surprised at all that this one's coming in around 45 minutes. I hope you guys like this kind of content. I'm going to give my editing skills some work tonight for sure. It's definitely something different than I've ever done. Anyone who made it through this entire video, I really appreciate your support. I would love to hear any of your feedback, any other ideas for the kind of things to do in this vein as we go through the months May, June, July, throughout the summer and through the end of the season. And just let me know anything else that you guys think is worth calling out for the month of April in the major leagues this year. Teams, players, positive, negative, any of that. I'd love to hear from you guys down in the comments. All right. Otherwise, I'll see you guys later this week, probably with I think a rookie card explosion box. And otherwise, I hope that you like this video, that you subscribe to the channel. And as always, appreciate the support. I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks a lot. Take care. The best is yet to come. Bye-bye.